Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So, looks like an amazing time here in Kentucky. We are really looking at the effects of the big, beautiful bill not being that. It's the big, ugly bill. You know, hopefully everyone now really realizes what it is that we've got ourselves into. All right. Today, the governor and other sources have, announced along with Ford that Ford is going to lay off 1,600 people in the Glendale Blue Oval plant. It's Glendale, Kentucky, here in Hardin County, just south of me. The whole reason that this county has been flourishing for the past several years is because Blue Oval SK was being built in Glendale, here in Hardin County, with $9 billion that the taxpayers gave to Ford to go EV, to build electrical vehicles, to help build vehicles that are better for the environment, will make jobs for Kentuckians right here in this state. And the big ugly bill got rid of, as of September, all of the EV incentives. So now GM and Ford, but especially Ford, are having to scale back on their production of electric vehicles. So Ford has announced they're not going to make any more Lightning pickup trucks. That's that truck that I sat here just a few days ago and said, hey, if I'm elected 6 months after election, I'll buy a Ford Lightning, brand new. Well, turns out that's going to be impossible now, thanks to this big, ugly bill. So, actions do have consequences. And the consequences of allowing the big, ugly bill to be voted up is now the effects are coming here, and chickens have come home to roost. And that is 1,600 quality Hardin County jobs are going to be lost. And Ford's going to write off $8 billion as a loss, even though that was, like I said, $9 billion that taxpayers gave to them. What does this mean? Well, we know that the workers at Blue Oval SK, when it was still Blue Oval SK, had voted to become part of the UAW, United Auto Workers Union. Same union that the big Ford production plants have, same union that Metalsa here in Hardin County has. Metalsa makes the frames for F-150 trucks, for the F-150 hybrid. They also, here in Hardin County, make the frames for the Navigator, and there's one other, I think it's the Excursion. So this is, going to affect us in a mighty way that we just really didn't foresee coming. We really had banked on this great incentive, this great investment, this building back better plan that invested in so many different arenas of our economy. We wiped that away with this big, ugly bill, and we're wiping away 1,600 Hardin County jobs right before Christmas. I mean, when is a better time to get that type of news for your family here in Hardin County? Guys, I just keep saying it. We've got to realize, like Mamaw told me years ago, The grand old party, the Republican Party, doesn't have common Americans at heart. They don't care about you or about me. We don't have trust funds. We're not trust fund babies. Now, there's a few Kentuckians that are, but that's not most of the constituents here in Hardin County. And we've got to realize a vote for an R is not a vote for a great economy. How much more proof do we need this year? Right? We had people starving. We had the food lines, increased like never before here in this county. People that never had to go to food lines all of a sudden had to this year during that shutdown. We're all about to pay out the wazoo in healthcare cost increases, which is going to shut down a lot of mom and pop businesses. They're not going to be able to hire more employees and to, see that those employees get the healthcare benefits they need. This just, how many things do we need to see? How much hurt do we need to put on the average American before we say, hey, what's good for corporate America isn't what's great for the average working American? We all sink or we all float together. And right now, a lot of folks are sinking. A lot of folks are feeling the effects. And we know now we have FAFO, right? This is the finding out time. So if it's not enough, what more do we need? Even today, the same time we find this out, we see this president making a long little message to the whole nation, speaking evil of Rob Reiner and his wife in their death, saying nasty things about them on their death. Now imagine anyone said anything even slightly not nice about Charlie Kirk. What happened to them? They got doxxed, all kinds of nasty stuff. But this guy goes and says nasty, nasty stuff about two people who were just stabbed to death in their home last night. And he goes and tears them down in the most nasty manner imaginable. And even our representative, Thomas Massey, has called it out, said he challenges anyone else that he knows to come and tell him that that's not what just happened, that wasn't nasty as you get out. Again, even Marjorie Taylor Greene saying the same thing. So, folks are realizing that there is a time and a place for some of the nonsense, but most of the nonsense now, we're realizing doubles right back down on us, right? We've been applauding a bully for a long time and acting like he's the bully in our corner, when no, he's the bully in the corner of corporate interests. So up and down our ballots coming up, we've got to stand up and say, hey, I remember a Kentucky where the folks that we voted into office took care of the working folks in this state. And we don't have that happening right now. We got to get back to it. Elect me and elect other folks that are of the same ilk as me. We care about our local veterans. We care about our local voters, our local workers. And I see in here in the comments, we got some people, it's all jokes, and we got other people are agreeing. So some people say, somebody here said, "Oh, we talk about the Chicago Bears." Yeah, you know why I read that one out loud to us, but nope. Um, Someone here saying people should dumpster dive. All the food that is wasted in the world is crazy. Okay, Jeffrey Moore. Interesting. Boo hoo, huh? All right. So I guess that we should all be dumpster diving according to Jeffrey Moore. Interesting take. Julia Sharp. It was absolutely vile. This was a family tragedy, not a political thing. I'm sick of media normalizing his bad behavior. And that's just it. Anyone else behaves this way, and we call it what it is, bullying, vile, not the way that we want our kids to act. I don't want my kids saying anything like this guy said today about a dead person. I also was looking forward to my kids that are now, most of them, young adults in college or the workforce. I was looking forward to them being able to get a great job, hopefully, in one of our local UAW factories. Now, Matulsa, is going to bear the weight of being the only UAW workforce here. Thank God for them. But we should have had those 1,600 people out there in Glendale all working at Blue Oval, should have all been union workers, should have had the ability right now, if this happened, to negotiate employment elsewhere, another UAW plant somewhere else. But now we drug our feet on that. I say we, it wasn't you and me, listener, I'm sure. But yeah, we've really got to get back to caring about regular workers, caring about the average American, making it America first, not Argentina first, who we gave 40 billion to. Hopefully, Jeffrey Moore, when you say boo hoo, I assume that just doesn't matter to you, that $40 billion handout given to Argentina when we were in a government shutdown. Those billions just handed out to Israel while we're in a shutdown. Now this can't abide. If the dude's gonna abide, can't be this way. So we need to push for more responsible elected officials who won't put up with this kind of nonsense, who won't be vile, who have the good of all Americans in their heart of hearts. And you can't tell me that someone who cheered on the stabbing of two people in their own home, that they have the good of all Americans at heart. All right. I won't buy it. You can sell me a bridge, but not that one. That's a bridge too far. All right, y'all. Well, let me know what you think. Is this economy here in Hardin County, what are we going to be able to do to make up for all this infrastructure we've been building to absorb all these folks that have been coming in, buying houses, renting? How are we now going to absorb the loss? This is going to hit our schools hard, because if our houses get devalued, that's going to decrease funding for schools. It's also going to decrease when you decide to refinance your home or try to maybe pay off some debt through financing it again. Yeah, you're not going to be able, if your home goes from being worth 270,000, 400,000, and say it's 270,000, it drops down to 215. Yeah, you're not going to be able to do that. If it was valued at 400,000, now it's down to 300,000. You're not going to be able to use your equity in your home anymore. And that is thanks to this big, ugly bill, right? There are consequences, and this is a consequence. So Yeah, hey, coffee cats and true crime. Yeah, you actually caught alive. Good to see you here. Welcome. So, again, this big ugly bill, what are you going to do to change it for us to reverse course? And we've got a chance to do it. It has to be done this next election. All right. Got to up and down the ballot. Get rid of these folks who work hand in hand against you and me. Okay. We've got to work to put folks in office who give a damn about you and about me. All right. Because we're all in it together. I am my brother's keeper. I'm my sister's keeper. All right. I love my neighbor just as much as I love myself. All right. So let's change it. Yeah. Julia Sharp, you got it. Julia says Hal Rogers has been in office for freaking 44 years. Right. I don't see anyone coming out from his office or from Moscow Mitch's office to decry this big, ugly bill and what it did to our electric vehicle operations here in Kentucky, what it did to Ford, which Ford had to absorb here, or they say they had to, right? So until I see the GOP acting on behalf of more folks than just the petroleum conglomerates, you're not going to convince me that they're good for Kentucky. All right. Again, just because you have an R by your name, we should know now that doesn't mean you are for the man who rolls up his sleeves to go to work hard every day or the woman that does that. All right. We know that this is union labor that just is getting ready to be sacked. 1,600 union jobs because they voted to unionize, regardless of what kind of games that Blue Oval SK was trying to play with that vote. That's what happened. And the fact that we're losing it, eh, we shouldn't be. All right, y'all. Have a great evening. And again, God bless your corazon. Let's take care of one another because there's only way we can get out of this alive. Have a great one.